then I'm in love.
Welcome to Gulfstream today from Gulfstream Park. Acacia Courtney and Gabby Gaudette. We have 10 races on this Sunday card to wrap up our racing week. But Gabby, a pretty stellar day yesterday.
It was a stellar day from here and all the way west coast, as well as we saw California Chrome win at Los Al last night, and we got information earlier this morning that he will be shipping in early January around the 6th. So really excited for that. He's one of the horses that just gets me so excited about to be in racing and get to witness a horse like that. But a great day locally as well, as we saw some pretty spectacular performances. And speaking of the Pegasus, the Harlan's Holiday, Todd Pletcher kind of using that as a prep potentially for Keen Ice and Stanford.
Yeah, and we do want to show a couple of the highlights from tomorrow. We'll start with the Grade 3 Sugar Swirl. Stonetastic went off as the big favorite, but it was actually won by Dearest. I thought it was largely because of Edgard Zayas. Dearest is little, but she's all heart, and Edgard Zayas really just a tremendous ride.
An absolutely brilliant ride by Edgard Zayas, and I thought the number 2 horse, the other Gilberto Zerpa horse, would have gone with Stonetastic, and she just wasn't fast enough. But Edgard Zayas just taking the ball in his own court and putting the pressure on Stonetastic, not giving her the ability to really relax, and that was what turned things around.
A nice performance from Dearest. Also a nice performance from Eskin for Money in the Grade 3 Rampart, which we'll show as well. And it was a good performance, but she really just did get the ideal setup in here.
She did. And Curlin's Approval, the number 3 horse on the inside, was hounded the entire way by Genre, the other Todd Pletcher runner, and just given a beautiful setup for Eskin for Money. And Curlin's Approval, I thought, was really game in defeat.
She really was. She could see that she was really getting tired in the stretch. That's the furthest she's ever ran before, but I think that she showed a lot of promise going a bit longer. Very game in there. And you mentioned the Harlan's Holiday, also a Grade 3 event. It was won by Stanford, who went wire to wire. Keen Ice just grinding along for second.
And there's nothing you can do with his running style. It's funny because Javier Castellano did a great job in trying to get him a bit closer to the pace, but he is just such a grinder. He just does not really move forward very quickly. But I thought a very good run from Stanford, considering the layoff from him, and he had the tactical advantage over the field, drawing the rail post, having the speed. But I think a nice 1-2 punch performance for Todd, looking forward to the Pegasus.
A very good day for Todd Pletcher. Some nice performances. We also saw Heart to Heart in the El Prado and Neck of the Moon in the South Beach. That was yesterday. Let's talk about today and the wagering opportunities that we do have. Race number 1 today. We'll start the $1 rolling super high 5 as always. That's any race with 7 runners or more. The first race also starts the early pick 5, which is a mandatory payout as well, just a 50-cent wager. And then in race number 5 today, that starts our Rainbow 6. The carryover really building nicely there, over $104,000. Gabby will show you her ticket. She hit it yesterday, so pay attention. Hopefully we can get it 2 in a row. And then the 6th race that starts the late pick 5, again, just a 50-cent wager.
Okay, and I think the Rainbow 6, it's definitely much tougher today than it was yesterday. And looking at yesterday's sequence, you like to have favorites in the sequence, at least legitimate horses. It gave me the ability to single on horses like Stanford and Heart to Heart. Today, I've taken a little bit of a different approach, but interesting to get to it. Occasion, we start things off with race 1. This does kick off the early pick 5. How did you see it?
Well, race number 1 is 7.5 furlongs on the turf, a $16,000 open claimer. We'll show you my ticket. I agree with you. Not an easy sequence today. I wanted to go deeper, so I did single Zulu in the 3rd race in the Tamarak Stakes. Now, I'll be honest, I think that it's just by virtue of the fact of the field of what he's facing today. He's coming off a layoff. We saw him schooling the other day. He's probably going to be coming in good for Todd Pletcher. I think he's got a huge shot to win, which is why I singled. Does that mean I'm enamored with the horse and where he's going next? Not entirely so, but in today's field. And again, because I did want to go 4 deep in the 1st and the 4th, 2 deep in the others, just $32 for me.
Okay, I like it. You used 4 horses to start things off in this first race, and this open $16,000 condition, especially on the turf, can be a little bit difficult. But I try to get creative in here in trying to beat the 4 Hidden Val. I went to the outside with the number 10, Very, Very Stella. Will have to work out a trip from an outside post position, but this horse is a proven commodity here at the Gulfstream Park Turf Course, 4-time winner, and I think he gets a little bit of a class relief than what he has been facing in the past. He's even been capable in the past of beating a other than Company, and now he's in for the $16,000 tag.
It's definitely going to be a bit easier. He was running against State Bred last time, but it was optional claiming tough Company. I do think it was a bit tougher than what he faces today. He had a 3-race win streak going on. He won against 16 condition claimers, and as you said, a other than. So definitely like the class that he has. I did land on the number 4 Hidden Vow, but that's a big reason why I went 4 deep in this opening leg, because this is a horse. His last 4 races were in the money. He was a huge price last time out and was beaten just ahead, going 1 mile and a 16th at Aqueduct. He's cutting back to the 7.5 furlongs. He's 0 for 7 at this distance, which was a concern for me as well. I just thought pace-wise, he might be the one to get the best trip out of here.
He should be able to get a good pace, and I agree with you. This is a horse that you really want to use protectively in the pick 5. He put in a huge performance last time out. He was kind of closing from off the pace and going in between horses under Mike Luzzy, so visually that was a good effort. The concern for me is that he is 0 for 10 this year, and he's 3 for 44 in his career, so sometimes his victories are far and few in between, but he does kind of maintain the class level of this field.
You know, he's going to be running consistently. We'll see if he can get over that next step and get to the winner's circle. But again, a race I think you have to use a lot of horses in. The number 1 Crazy Bull is coming back in just 7 days after finding a sloppy track last time and getting off a bit slow.
And yes, I think that horse is coming back to a little bit of a more preferred surface. I kind of gave the nod to the 3 Galfenstein just from the pace scenario in here, or the fact that he has early speed. But he does look like one that probably could take pressure, so unfortunately he's going to have to bat off the early pressure and then bat off some of these horses that will be closing from off the pace that have been exiting better conditions lately.
Not an easy way to start off the card, but definitely a fun one. Race number 2 today is 6 furlongs on the main track. It's a maiden claiming event with tags of $12,500, and we both landed on the number 3, Love Again, who's trying to get out of second gear.
And I initially went against this horse. I picked the 2 Sylvester Yoli on top. So I do pick this filly by default. I just like her tactical speed. She has the ability to maybe stalk from off of the pace, or maybe if they get aggressive with her, you get a horse like this with not a tremendous amount of pace in this race, and maybe she will gain some confidence if they do decide to get aggressive with her. But it's hard to feel confidently really about anybody in here.
I totally agree, and I don't think that she'll be on the front end. It's not really Luca Panici's style to go out to the front end. We have sometimes seen him kind of surprise everybody and take horses to go out to the front when it looks like nobody's going to go. So that might be the case that happens with Love Again. I just thought that she was maybe a little bit more of a surer thing versus the number 9, Mine Again, who was well beaten last time out, but maybe she just needed some experience. She was the favorite there in that race, and she was a little bit wide. She weakened a bit. That was over at Gulfstream Park West. Ralph Nix, second time out. We do want to give a trainer stat on Ralph Nix in the past 5 years with horses making their second career start, maidens in dirt sprint. They're about 28% win, 61% of the time in the money, and a very good ROI of 281. So that statistic kind of helped me put this horse a little bit closer. I just still couldn't put her on top.
And it's always enticing to go to horses who have less starts in their career because they always, have the ability to maybe move forward. So I think you must use her. And the only other option for me was the one tail of Priscellian here. She's cutting back from 7 furlongs, but she is one that needs a little bit of help on the front end, as she does look to be a deep closer.
Okay, we go to race number 3, which is our stake today. It's the Tamarak, 7 furlongs on the main track, 3-year-olds, which have never won a sweepstakes. And of course, all eyes will be on the number 7, Zulu.
Even money on the morning line here, and it's been a while since we've seen Zulu. We haven't seen him since he stepped up against Grade 1 Company in the Bluegrass last time out, and we'll go back and take a look at his performance when he did go against Graded Stakes Company for the first time. That was in the Fountain of Youth behind Mohaman. And this was a horse who had some question marks. Obviously, Mohaymen was the top contender on the East Coast, and Zulu had previously only run on wet tracks prior to going into the Fountain of Youth. And I know Todd Pletcher and all the connections have thought very highly of him pretty much his entire career. But I always have been a bit skeptical of him. And not only is he coming back off the shelf, he's coming back off the shelf at 7 furlongs, which I think you really need a good bottom in your horse in order to win at 7 furlongs. Now, look, Todd has had so much success bringing horses off the shelf, winning at 7 furlongs, especially here at Gulfstream. And he clocked a really nice workout against Keen Ice in prep for this race. So he is the horse to beat. I just think there still are some question marks with him.
There are absolutely question marks, and that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, that I put him on top. I thought he was a logical single for trying to keep tickets affordable in the multi-race wagers, but if you do have a little bit more in your bankroll, this might be a race that you can find some value in because Zulu will be heavily bet. If you can find an alternative, this might be the place to do it because Zulu did have a win at the 7 furlongs, but it was on a sloppy sealed track, so you don't know if maybe that aided him a little bit. He won by open lengths that day. He was very highly touted early in his career, totally bombed when he tried Grade 1 company. Obviously, there was something wrong. You took that huge layoff. Coming back now, it looks like he's coming back. As you said, Todd Pletcher does well with that kind of move, but it's hard to always feel so confident about a horse like that.
And we'll talk about other options, and perhaps one of them could be the 3 Yellow Chips. Trying 2 Other Than company last time out. We'll show that video spotlight replay for this horse. That was at 3/4. We'll just show the final quarter of a mile, and I thought he closed nicely from off the pace.
He did. He really did. He was only beaten a short number of lengths there. He was the number 6, and he had to go pretty wide there too and just carve out a spot. And he had to be almost in the center of the track in that race, and it didn't look like he was going to be able to even get close. They finally found some room, was able to move him a little bit closer to the rail. You see the difference just in how much dirt he took versus the horses on the front end.
And it wasn't a bad effort by any means because it wasn't a very, very strong pace in front of him. There weren't a lot of horses closing from off of it, and he kind of picked up the pieces. And the fact that he is a closing sprinter at 6 furlongs, I think it gives you a little bit of confidence that this horse can maybe improve going 7/8, and he has experience at the 7/8 distance before. Now, he won against Maiden Claiming Company in that race, but he did manage to sit a bit closer to the pace. You see, he just rated from about a length off of them. So I think that's the key for him, is to get a little bit closer. But I went off the walls here to try to beat Zulu as the even money favorite. The 1/7 Sense I'm really intrigued by, just from his last 2 races alone. Now, he is by City Zip, so I don't think he won at a mile and a 16th last time out, but I think that serves as an excellent bottom for him to cut back to the 7/8 today. And 7 furlongs he did try off of a pretty sizable layoff there from July to October. It was an okay performance. He looked a little bit short of fitness. Last time out, though, going back and watching the replay, Acacia, he was very headstrong early on, and it took Julien Leparoux a lot of effort to try to get this horse to relax. So my thinking is, after that replay, showing that this horse does have a little bit of speed with the blinkers on and the rail post position, maybe they try to steal it from the rail post position. He's got a lot of speed, and I don't think he likes to harness it. I think he just likes to go.
That's my thinking, too. I think he'll be sent from the rail. I think that he'll be the speed in here. And if nobody can catch him, if Zulu doesn't show the same kind of speed that he did on those off tracks, then it certainly could set up for a horse like 7th Sense, and you will certainly get a better price on him than you will on Zulu. But if
favorites get beat from time to
there
time,
you
don't
go.
they?
Absolutely.
Not usually Todd Pletcher favorites.
Not usually Todd Pletcher. He did have a good day yesterday, but we'll see if Gabby can beat Zulu in the Tamarak. Again, that's in the 3rd race. And we'll go now to the 4th race, which is a maiden special weight. It's 1 mile on the main track for fillies, the 2-year-old fillies. And I thought there were a couple ways to go. You landed on the number 9, Speedy Bird.
I did. This 2-year-old filly is by Birdstone. And Ian Wilkes had a great meet at Churchill. And I hope that he can kind of transition that here to South Florida. So far, he already has a victory at Gulfstream. And I just like the pedigree. She's bred to like a little bit more distance. She is by Birdstone, but she's also a half-sister to Viva Mallorca, who was a Grade 1 placed horse that Ian Wilkes and Mary Lou Whitney Stables also did train. I thought she got a tremendous amount of experience in her debut. She got so much dirt in her face, and she kind of turned that back to just close late. She had kind of a long loping stride as well. Just looking at her performance first time out, looks like this horse really wants a distance of ground, and that's what she gets today. And not only that, I didn't show this stat, Acacia, but because I found it kind of last minute, but with Ian Wilkes, with his dirt horses in their second start going from sprints to routes, he's 23% out of 26 horses and a positive ROI of $5. So that stat really solidified this pick for me.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one to take note of, because this is a pretty wide open race. I think that the morning line favorite is the 7 Jordan's Henny, who we both tried to pick against. I went with the number 6 Silhouette, who has her own fair share of questions, and I thought ran a pretty good race in her debut. We'll go back and show that one. This was up at Woodbine, and it was on the synthetic. So that's always the question coming down to South Florida. Now she's also stretching out to the mile. But we have seen some horses that have run well in the synthetic come to South Florida and be able to transfer that form. I do like that she has Javier Castellano in the saddle, too.
And she has 2 workouts over the main track at Palm Meadows, which I think serves as a good kind of platform in order for her to transition to the main track today. Some nice workouts too, and looking at her running style as well, it looks like a filly that definitely wants more distance of ground. She gets that today, and she was reserved for a little while. If you can see her here at the quarter pole, it didn't even look like she would hit the board, and then all of a sudden she just kind of sprouted wings. We can see she's the number 3 horse. She just gets a couple of taps of encouragement, and she does close like a freight train. So really picking up the pieces as she continued to go on. The winner of that race too proved to be pretty productive. She came back and won the Ontario Lassie next out at 1 mile and a 16th. So she got more distance and improved. So I think this is one of the 2 shorter price horses in here that probably you want to respect. I opted for her, but Jordan's Henny does, she's been coming out of tough competition. Some of her competition that she did run against the maiden special weight company would eventually even go on to try the Breeders' Cup like Valadorna.
Right, absolutely. And in her last race, I thought that she actually ran pretty well considering the way it was. It was like everybody rushed up in the first flight, and she had the advantage of getting a bit closer to the rail early on because there were 5 or 6 horses spread out that just really wanted the lead right away. She still managed to get 3rd in there. She was really wide 2 starts back and still managed to get 2nd. So not having the most ideal trip, she's been able to finish well and finish in the money, which is probably why she will take a lot of betting attention today. She needs to get a good trip in here. She needs to get a clean break. That's why I opted for Silhouette and her late kind of running style. Hopefully she does get a little bit more forwardly placed today, now that it seemed like the light kind of turned on a little bit in the stretch and says, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. But I was intrigued by the number 1 Fancy Pinstripes, who I do want to give a quick mention to. In her debut race going 5 furlongs, she finished 3rd. She was making a big run. If anybody that's been following South Florida racing remembers Fallen Leaf, who just seems to run all over the track, when she did actually cross the wire first, she ended up jumping the rail and being disqualified. This race was actually her debut race, where she was just veering all over in the stretch, and she totally cut off Fancy Pinstripes in there. She had to go wide. She wasn't even able to make what might have been an even better move. She stretched out to the mile. She finished 2nd there. The turf was a failed experiment last time, but I like her back on the dirt.
Dirt looks like her preferred surface here, and I do think that she should be able to get a nice stalking trip from the inside. Ralph Nix, though, for whatever reason, I try to find a stat on him, and he doesn't do this quite often, going from turf to dirt with his maiden special weight horses going a route of ground. So I don't know what to make of that. He's only done it a handful of times and hasn't had success with it. So I do respect her, but I did go in a different direction. I think you wanted to show a stat on the 6 Silhouette for Josie Carroll.
We do. We'll go back and show that very quickly because it is a good one to keep an eye out for. Josie Carroll in the past 5 years, horses making their 2nd career start that were in the money last time out and are now stretching from sprint to route. 4 for 16, 25% win, 56% of the time in the money, and a $3 ROI. So again, just sometimes you find a stat that helps you push a horse over the edge.
Absolutely, and that's definitely a positive stat that you want to pay attention to.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll tackle the Rainbow Six.
January 28th at Gulfstream Park, an icon takes flight. The world's richest thoroughbred horse race. 12 of the sport's finest horses. One race. on the line. Watch, wager, witness. Go to PegasusWorldCup.com for more.
Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Acacia and Gabby ready to tackle the Rainbow Six. It starts here in race number 5. Don't forget, we have a nice carryover building there, more than $104,000. The 5th race is a mile and a 16th on the turf, $35,000 maiden claiming for the 2-year-old fillies. Gabby, let's see the ticket.
Let's take a look. I will tell you, I'll give you full disclosure here. My single is a kind of a shot in the dark here, so we're just hoping that we can get this single home later today. The singles on yesterday's card were a little bit more reliable, but I do like this filly a lot today, so I felt most confidently about her in this sequence. I think the feature race of the day, I could have even used more horses in there because there are some kind of dubious favorites in there. I don't know. That race really confused me today, but only using 2 horses in that leg of the sequence, just the 7 and the 8. But I singled on More Mia in race 8. That is a George Navarro horse, a turf sprinter, but I thought race 5 really needed a spread, using 3 horses in both at 6 and 7, and then spreading in the final leg of the sequence with 4 horses as well, $57.60. And again, we have that carryover of over $104,000. So I think you can put a pretty decently priced ticket on board to try to tackle it today.
Well, I think it'll be pretty well bet. And it's always good when you can find a single to keep it affordable. So like your tactics there. And again, we started off with this maiden claiming mile and a 16th on the turf. Couple logical horses. Ballyhoo Moon, I can understand you taking this horse. She has yet to really show much promise, though.
She has. So I think that's the reason why the connections are dropping her in class for Maiden Special Weight Company. And sometimes you get these horses who are stepping up in class a little bit, maybe making lateral moves and then stepping down, and you have to decipher who's going to do best on this day. And she is nicely bred. She is by Malibu Moon. They tried her against Maiden Special Weight Company, didn't pan out. But her third against 2 starts back, I know it was a shorter field and she was well beaten, but those horses actually came on to do quite well. Backstage, she was DQ'd in there. She came back to win a maiden special weight and 4th in an A other than. Silver Diva went on to win a stake at Gulfstream Park West. So that race has been productive, and I think the drop in alone is going to make her a little bit successful.
Yeah, I liked her too. I thought that she was worthy of being in the top 2. Just a little bit hesitant putting her on top just yet. Wanted to see how she would perform in maiden claiming company, but totally respect her in this spot, and this just might be where she belongs in a lower level. But I did go with the number 11 Glace for Jane Sibeli, who's a little bit of a question too. She finished second in her debut. That was against $20,000 maidens. She finished behind the heavy favorite, Dangerous Woman. She was kind of all over the track. She was pulling early. She didn't look comfortable. It was her debut race. She then stepped up to face $50,000 maidens at Gulfstream Park West last time, and she made a little bit of a bid. She was only beaten by 3 lengths, but I like the little bit of the class drop here. I think she might go back to show some of that promise that she did earlier.
Yeah, the drop in class should help her. I mean, we just have our top 2 selections flip-flopped. We kind of saw the top 2 in the same way, but one horse that could potentially get money in here would be the number 5. And if the blinkers go on, she got a high buyer speed figure, 52, in her turf debut. But you can see in the short comment it says reserved and then late gain. Me going back and watching the replay, I really didn't see it the same way. I thought she broke slowly because she kind of stayed at the back of the pack and she never really moved forwardly. So watching that replay made me a little bit less confident on her. I did use her 3rd. You used her 4th. But I think probably one that if she does take money, she could be vulnerable.
And she's actually the morning line favorite looking down at the program. So certainly one to watch the board on, because I wasn't completely sold off of her on that turf race, as you were too. But fun way to start off the Rainbow Six as we go to the sixth race, which does start the late pick 5 at 7 furlongs on the main track. $12,500 maiden claiming event for the 3-year-olds and up. And we'll show you my ticket. No singles for me in the late pick 5. I just didn't feel confident enough in any spot. I did use the horse that you singled in the 8th race, but went totally different way in the feature in the 9th. I'm trying to get a price home in the 7th. I'm really interested in high quality Prince, who's coming back in just about 7 days, coming back to the turf as well. So that's going to be my potential single spot, but there is a favorite in there I felt I protectively had to use. $54 for me in the late pick 5.
I like it. $54. It's like I said, I think you have to, sometimes you just have to play these races or the sequences a little aggressively. And by no means is More Mia a clear-cut winner, but she was one of the few that I felt mostly confidently about in the pick 6. And this race does kick off the pick 5, as we just saw your ticket. And I thought lower-level maiden claimers, they're always very difficult races to start a sequence.
It's a difficult place to start a sequence. We did both land on the number 8 Motherland, who was off last time out in her debut, but there was a horse in front of her that lost its rider, maybe just upset him a little bit. He had to check a bit, still managed to get 4th.
Yeah, that was very scary, actually. He broke from the rail post position that day. The number 2 horse just jumped right over him and tried to jump the inside rail too. So that happened. That took away his ability to show any bit of early speed. He was also extremely wide pretty much the entire way around there. But I do think it's the right move to drop this horse, because I don't think there were any heavy hitters at that maiden 35 level. And Gilberto Zerpa just well placing this horse. So I agree with you with Motherland. And I think Balak is the one that we have to focus on. Luis Saez picks up the mount today. He was heavily bet after his debut performance because he did get into so much trouble, and he surged like he was going to run past the entire field. And last time out, it was just kind of anticlimactic. He didn't perform as he should have at 90 cents to the dollar.
Absolutely, and he did make a big ride. He got a big jockey change to Jonathan Gonzalez last time out, so it looked like everything was going to come together and he should win. He wasn't able to do it. I put him in second again because of that, but wouldn't be surprised to see him running well again today.
How about some jalapeno? The number 10 jalapeno is 15 to 1 on the morning line, gets Lasix, comes back off of about over a year layoff, actually. But if you look at this horse's performances prior to the layoff, I think it's kind of pretty much the same numbers as what he's facing today. This horse might need one, but why not try to find a good price to throw into some exotics?
Absolutely. He was running well before the layoff. I took a wait and see with him, but I did throw on the number 5, Classio Prado, who tried the turf in his last couple of starts, didn't like going a distance, but cut back to a sprint last time out, and he managed to finish 3rd, having to be really wide. He hung a bit. He didn't manage to get across the wire, but I thought he might be one to finish in the money here, and I want to give a trainer stat on Dale Romans. In the past 5 years with maidens dirt sprints right here at Gulfstream, these were actually honestly better than I was expecting to see. 15% win, 42% of the time in the money, and a positive ROI of 312. So I thought that this one, slight class drop coming to Florida. He's 0 for 15. He might finish in the money. I don't know if I like him to win. I did say that about 4 times yesterday about Neck on the Moon, who did end up winning that race there. So maybe that's me jinxing him, but I do think that this one has a shot to run well.
I like the 7 furlongs for this horse because he can't sustain his stamina going 2 turns, a mile and a 16th, as he showed at Churchill 2 starts back. Last time out, he did not really show a will to finish, but I think 7 furlongs might be a perfect distance for him to just stalk and let that pace unfold. And I can remember about around this time last year running a similar stat for trainer Dale Romans with his maiden claimers, and he does well. He does win with them, and usually at big prices. I don't know how much of a price you'll get with this horse as he is dropping, but probably one to pay attention to.
And to keep an eye out as hopefully we can get some prices to start off the pick 5. Race number 7 is 1 mile on the main track, 6250 claiming event for 3-year-olds and upward. A couple interesting horses in here. I mentioned I'm trying to beat the favorite, the 7 Ravello's Boy, and you are too.
I am, with the number 1 Argosy to the inside here for trainer Ralph Nix. And this horse has obviously been extremely lightly raced in the past 2 years. He only had one start in 2015, only one start so far this year. But I do like the fact that he is putting back-to-back, at least consecutive races. His last race was in October. He didn't show up that day, but it was against tougher company. Plus, there were some class droppers in there. So for the level, it came up relatively tough. And it's kind of served as a bottom for this horse. He's not a three-quarter horse. He's definitely a mile type of runner. So I like just the added distance. But we're trying to get creative with the beating the 7 Ravello's Boy. You try to go to the 8 high-quality Prince, who comes back to the dirt.
He did. He found a sloppy track taken off of the turf last time, and that was just 7 days ago on December 11th. It was against much tougher. It was against $16,000 claimers. That was him stepping up after a very good effort against $8,000 claimers. It looks like some of his best races, or in fact most of his best races, have come when he's more forwardly placed or on the lead. I don't know if he really handled that sloppy track the best that day. I like him coming back to the turf. It's definitely his preferred surface. I think he shows some speed in here because there are a couple horses that do have speed, including Ravello's Boy, but there's nobody that looks like they have to be on the lead.
Ravello's Boy will show speed. It's just something that George Navarro is kind of ingrained. His horses are ingrained in. And this horse, I do think, is the one to beat. You know, last time out, he faced similar company, but he has, I guess, his only vulnerability were his 2 races, his 2 really subpar performances that he put in at Monmouth, and then he kind of just woke up last time out. And if you're kind of a pattern handicapper, sometimes this horse just doesn't put in back-to-back solid effort, so he might be sitting on a subpar effort today.
He certainly could, but what we do know is that that's not the case for George Navarro. We'll give a trainer stat in the past 5 years with horses that won last time out after about 31 to 60 days in low-level claiming races below $10,000. 44% win, 81% of the time in the money, and a 265 ROI. So George Navarro knows how to do it. The question is, does Ravello's Boy?
It has, sometimes his wins do come far and few in between. So, but I do respect him for the connections alone. The 10 Tismus to the outside for trainer Jason Service was one that I looked for, but he is over 12 at the distance. I like his early speed, though. He hasn't quite been able to carry it before, but that has been going against much tougher company. So maybe the combination with added distance and outside post and dropping in class to one of the lower levels that he's faced will help this horse maybe sustain his early speed.
Okay, we'll go to the 8th race today. It's 5 furlongs on the turf. $16,000 open claiming event for the 3-year-olds and upward. And again, another place where you can go many ways. I know this was your single.
And we'll see how it all shakes out, Acacia. But I do think More Mia is in tremendous form right now for trainer George Navarro. We'll go back and take a look at his performance, not his last start at the Meadowlands, but the start prior to that on the 5th of September. And this horse was just absolutely determined to win that day. And we can see him get into a lot of trouble on the backstretch, just checking completely out of his position there. And then he re-rallied. He kind of recovered. The rider took him to the outside, and he just swoops around the entire field, extremely wide in this final turn too. And when you have that kind of momentum, you're not really focused on saving ground, especially at 5 furlong sprints. But he absolutely ran down the leader this day, Canarsie Kid, who would go on to win in his subsequent start too. Canarsie Kid had a beautiful trip near the front end, and he just showed an absolute level of tenacity that I want in a turf sprinter. He can kind of work out his own trip, and when things don't happen according to plan, he can recover quickly.
I like him in here too. I just opted for the number 9 Starship Thor on top just because I thought that he had performed well against much better. Canarsie Kid is a pretty respectable runner, so no knocks in More Mia running him down there, and he certainly did that. He seemed very comfortable sprinting on the grass at Monmouth, but Starship Thor was running against 25 and 20,000 optional claimers in his last 2. He had a pair of seconds, a win at the 16 non-winners of 3. He's kept coming back after showing that he could compete with tougher company, coming back to the level where he does seem to belong after that last win.
And he's got quick gate speed, which I think is always valuable, especially from an outside post position. So Nick Juarez in the saddle, we've been seeing him ride some pretty savvy and intuitive races here. So Starship Thor, I would say if you're going to use 2 horses, definitely respect that one. The other horse in here that kind of fits the bill class-wise is the 6, Little Baker, but we haven't seen this horse since June. He is coming off of a little bit of a layoff, and overall with 180-plus day layoffs in general for Ralph Zadie, doesn't have a lot of success, only 1 for 11.
1 for 11, but what I do like is that he's been working exceptionally well at Gulfstream Park West, so we'll see how he does off of that 6-month layoff. As we get to the feature, it's the 9th race, 1 mile and 16th on the turf, an allowance for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upward. Do imagine that Lobelia is going to take quite a bit of money after her impressive performance in the Tiara.
And we'll show that performance in the Tiara. She was actually number 6 that day, and she ran so well. She's another one that it didn't look like she was going to hit the board whatsoever. And even though we saw closers finish 1-2 in this race, they didn't go very quickly in front of them. They actually went pretty slow, 25 and change, 51 and change for the half. And I liked how we saw both Marabi and the number 6 in there, Lobelia, kind of pick up the pieces. She was unfortunate to lose kind of the photo there. It was an exciting finish, but sometimes people will bet horses off their immediate last races, and when I look at her form, she spent a lot of time against claiming company, whether it be starter allowance company, maiden claimers, the non-winners of 2 for 30. Even though she put in a huge race against stakes company last time out, I kind of saw the race and opted for horses who have been consistently competing against the allowance fields. Well,
that's fair. What really pushed her over the edge for me was the fact that I do really like her at this distance. She's performed well at the mile or the 7.5 furlongs to turning on the turf, but I do like her a little bit longer even. She broke her maiden at the mile in a 16th. She did perform well in optional claiming company. I thought it was a solid effort against some tough company, and then she really seems to have just come into her own over the past couple of races and think she's in good form. That's why I did put her on top, though I do think that she'll take some money. You ended with the number 8, though.
And Lobelia could just be rounding into form. I mean, you make a good point about that she continues to take steps forward, and sometimes it's not fair to compare their form earlier this year as it is now. So I took a long, hard look at her, but Lanita, I think, just comes out of stronger races, and I know it took her a long time to break her maiden, but you just look at the company. I mean, she faced grade 3 company the first time stateside against Tin-Type Gal, Time in Motion, horses who have just gone on to be huge factors in the graded stakes caliber field. So she finally did break her maiden at Saratoga. I thought it was a good performance, but nothing crazy. When she faced 7 furlong, or when she faced allowance field last time out, you see she was beaten on form a little over 3 lengths, but it looks, going back and watching that replay, it looked better than it does on paper. She was actually reserved the first half of the stretch, and then she finally recovered and she finished well. And I just like her work tab leading into here. She looks like she's been clocking some pretty sharp workouts on the turf at Palmettos.
She does, and Patrick Biancone does do a good job bringing horses into his barn and racing them here in South Florida. As we wrap up the card with the 10th race, it's 5 furlongs on the turf, $16,000 open claimer for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. You landed to the outside with I Will Be Free.
I Will Be Free. I just like the fact that she is dropping pretty significantly in class. She's been facing that allowance optional claiming level for the past few starts, and now she drops to the $16,000 level. She's proven on this local turf course, the 3-time winner. She's proven that she can sprint on the turf too. So just a lot of things to like off of her form. You landed on the 7 Sunrise Kitty to try to beat, well, I think 2-Step Floor and Sunrise Kitty are going to go off at a close price.
I think so too. I did give the op to Sunrise Kitty just because of the class drop too and the kind of form that she kept in her last race against Tougher. But two-step floor, she does have that speed, and we do want to show a replay of her recent performance as well. Again, I think that speed's going to be her best ally in here. 5-year-old mare. This was at Gulfstream Park West on November 4th for Ralph Zadie. She was the number 4 that day. She did finish second in this race with Edgar Zayas aboard. He's going to stay aboard, and I thought that she ran pretty well. She kind of was holding on to be second there. She pulled up a little bit, but I thought it was a pretty solid effort.
I like the fact that she took pressure really the entire way around there and still showed a willingness to finish to the finish.
Yeah, she kept on keeping on, as you have to do, and we'll try to do that as well as we round out our racing week. Again, at 10 races today. Don't forget we have the Tamarak Stakes, more than $104,000 in that Rainbow Six carryover as well.
What do I love about horse racing? Everything.